Hi, you're listening to When Isabel Met Aviva, a podcast about rom-coms, female-driven screenwriting, and how to break into the entertainment industry. I'm Isabel.
And I'm Aviva.
And thanks for listening to our podcast.
Awesome. Okay, so today we're chatting with, maybe you should explain how you met this person that we're going to be interviewing today.
I met Alex through, were we interns? I was a production assistant on Laggies, the movie in Seattle, a local indie film with Keira Knightley. It was exciting. I was like, I saw it. We're in the same photo together with Keira Knightley, with like a lot of other people. So just through, it's been so long. I need to look at her IMDb. She possibly worked on another film with me when we were interns. So let's do a refresher. But
okay.
So Alex, just we've kind of been in touch since then, just randomly through social media, and she's done a lot of really interesting like producing work. So I like zoomed with her a while ago when she was doing what's it called, like audio storytelling. So I'm curious about that. I think she's in New York now, but she's also had a lot of cool gigs in LA before, and then we met in Seattle years ago.
Okay.
So
awesome.
But yeah, let's just have her tell us about her bio and everything. So yeah, just a casual chat about.
I'm excited.
She's actually like making stuff. She's a go-get, like really like actually, as you were saying before, just like actually making films, which is impressive to me. So
yeah, I was just gonna say that's what impressed me about her bio the most, is just like, oh, she's actually like, she wrote something and then she just made it. And so I'm like, sometimes I want to like just talk to those people where I'm like, I like will write things and just sit around with them, and they just sit on my computer. But I always admire the other people who are they just go and they make it. They write a short, they actually put it together, they film it, they have an actual product at the end of it. And I'm just kind of like, how do you do that?
I know. It's a really, sounds really nice.
So on this podcast, we'll learn, how do we do that?
How do you do that? Because I'm sure our writing would change too if we really were, like, we always knew we were going to be the ones to make it, right? So
yeah. Oh, I was going to tell you that I did, before we bring Alex in, after our chat with Christine last week, right? I went back and I have this like kind of like time loop family movie that's sort of like a comedy. I would say it definitely would be rated R, that I had kind of worked on last year, but then stopped working on it to do the other stuff I was working on. And I read it the other night and I was like, I actually think this is really good. And it's like really funny. It's really fast. I still have to write like, I would say maybe like 40 more pages, but then I think it would be done. But I was really thinking a lot about what Christine said of just like trying to finish something that would be like really only set in one place. Cause like really most of this, cause it's a, day that repeats type of story, but it's like all kind of just set in one location. And so I was like, maybe I need to rethink that strategy. Like this isn't necessarily a rom-com, and it's not like, I just think it's a funny idea. But when I read it, I was like, okay, this actually is funny. It has my voice to it, and it's only like a one location thing. Like I could see it being relatively easy to make. So now I'm motivated to finish that one. And maybe after this podcast episode, I'll be motivated to just film it myself.
Yeah. I'll quickly say before we bring Alex in, I was texting you, like, I wrote a short this week too. Like, I still want to work on my feature I was telling you about last episode about the witchy rom-com, but I just felt like writing something that I could just like finish in like that time period of being a desk. So I wrote a short and I was like, this is fun. I should make this. So hopefully Alex is chat with us. We'll figure out.
Yeah, now we're putting so much pressure on Alex.
I know.
Like, you better come on here and inspire us.
Okay, let's bring her in, okay?
Okay.
Cool. So we have Alex here. Hi, Alex. Thank you for chatting with us today.
Of course. I'm so excited to talk about rom-coms. I love them, and they are just like such a warm hug of a kind of movie.
They are. They're the best genre. You're in the right place.
So I want to hear how you guys met. Do you guys remember meeting? And I think Aviva, you were saying you were an intern somewhere.
Yeah. Wait, so Alex, we met on Laggies, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We met on the Lynn Shelton rom-com called Laggies. And just for what it's worth, Lynn Shelton was like always incredibly kind and such a warm, wonderful human being. And it's just such a tragedy that she didn't get more time to like be on this earth. But I feel really lucky that we both got to work on one of her films, even just as interns. It was like such a cool experience. And obviously we got to meet each other, which was so wonderful.
Yeah. Do you remember like what were you in the office or did you go to set?
Yeah, I was in the office. I went to set a couple of days, but I was terrified every time I was on set. And like, I think Ellie Kemper was like, "Do you know the way to the trailers?" And I was just like, I don't know. I think they're that way. And like, I was like freaking out. And she was perfectly nice to me, just treating me like a normal human being would. And I was not a normal person in response.
I relate to that. Yeah, I worked on a few other films and I remember Toni Collette like asked me where the trash can was and I was like, it's over there. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. And I just remember the rap party for Laggies being so much fun. Like there was karaoke and like Lynn and all the producers were up like singing in front of all of us little lowly people, and it was really fun.
Yeah. That was so long ago. But
you went to UW though, right? Yeah, and I went to Seattle University, so just a tiny little school across the way. But we both ended up with some good internship experiences being in that area.
Yeah, that was a time when Seattle was making a lot more indie films with some really great cast members. So
exactly, yeah.
And I think a lot of those producers aren't here anymore. I think they went to LA or elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean that's where I'm heading. So
yeah,
that's great. Yeah, I literally move in 3 days. So.
Oh wow! Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
So you're in New York now?
Yes, right now I'm in Brooklyn. I live in Bushwick, which is like the cool neighborhood, but I'm older than the cool people, so you know, I just kind of live here, and everybody else is like party all the time, and I'm like, but I would like to go to bed at 9.
Yeah,
relatable.
But yeah, so I'm in. I had a remote job, and I'd always wanted to live in New York, and my partner had lived here through her whole 20s and kind of wanted to come back, and so we just decided, you know, it was the right time, and we wanted to make the jump, and that was about 4 years ago. And now we are going to go back to LA because working in entertainment, being there helps a lot. It's not impossible to do from elsewhere, but it just makes things a little more attainable.
Yeah. So we were looking at your LinkedIn, and so you've been in LA before. And then you went to New York, you done Seattle. Yeah, can you talk to us about some of the jobs you had in LA and then what you did in New York as well?
So in LA, I first moved to California to do the Disney College program, which is kind of an internship, but kind of they just have you work at the theme park and call it an internship. But I worked at they pay you.
Okay.
Like minimum wage, but it's better than no dollars, which is what I made at other internships. So I worked at the Indiana Jones ride and in Adventureland, which was pretty cool. I got to wear like the fun hat and like tell people to have a magical day. And then after that, I was a barista for a while. And I did like PA gigs and unpaid internships and improv classes and all of that kind of stuff that you do like right when you move to a new city and try to do like entertainment stuff. And then I was very, very lucky to get into the NBC Page program, which if you've seen 30 Rock is what Kenneth is. So it's like this super competitive like program where you work in different parts of the company and they basically train you to be the best assistant on the earth. So I did that. And then I very briefly worked at a streaming service called CISO, which unfortunately was shut down when I worked there. And so we all got laid off, which was, a bummer, but a really good learning experience for working in entertainment, because if I've learned anything, it's that you will always get laid off at some point. And you just kind of have to roll with it. And then after that, I spent several years at Universal Television, working in current programming, which is sort of like the counterpart to development. So we would be sort of like the development people on any show that's past season 1. So like season 2 and beyond, essentially. And that was really great. I got to work on some really cool shows. I got to work on the last season of the Mindy Project. And then one of Mindy Kaling's other shows, Never Have I Ever, which was a really fun, very rom-com-y kind of teen show, which was great. And I got to work on the Will and Grace reboot. And I got to go, the coolest thing that happened there was I got to go to set and watch Jimmy Burrows direct an episode, like on the floor. And it was like he's directed episodes of Cheers and Taxi and like all of these incredible multicam shows from like the last several decades. And I got to like be in the same room as him. And that was like my big like star moment that I had, was a director of TV comedies. But that job was really great. And I learned so much about script anatomy and how to give notes and how to give feedback, and how TV shows actually get made, and how like where all the different pieces come together. And that was just like really cool. But I found that people were either really good at like the business side of things or really good at the creative side of things, but not many people could do both. So I decided to go to business school while I worked there. And so I went to UCLA and did a program there called FEMBA, which is what you do if you have a full-time job but also want to be in grad school at the same time. Not something I would recommend, by the way. Very hard work.
Oh,
I did not sleep very much. But it was a really great program. And because UCLA is obviously in Los Angeles, there were a lot of entertainment sort of focused classes that I was able to take, which was really cool. And then, once I had finished that, I was sort of ready for a new opportunity. And I ended up working with this company called Fresh Produce Media as a development manager. And that was really great. That company, they do primarily audio content, so like podcasts, but they do a lot of scripted fictional podcasts in addition to just kind of like your traditional chat documentary kind of podcasts. So in that role, I got to work directly with writers and producers to give them feedback on their scripts, to help them develop their ideas and pitch them to buyers. Aviva and I met about one of her scripts, and that was really fun too, because I got to, bring in writers that I just had met throughout my life to work with and figure out if there was a way that we could make something together. And one of the cool things that I got to do in that role was I got to create a podcast that is now on Audible. It's called the Introvert Survival Guide, and it's hosted by Aparna Nancherla. And that was something that I just sort of came up with as like something I wish existed for myself, because I typically am more introverted, and I want a comedian to just like give me advice, but make it funny. And so we pitched it, and Audible ended up buying it, and we were able to produce that. And that was just really cool. And so now like my name and my picture is on the page, and it's like
so
it's a nice little accomplishment.
That's exciting. That's really cool. Okay, I had questions as we were going.
Oh, yeah.
For Never Have I Ever, were you on set for that? Or
no? So I was the studio. I worked for the studio. So we were on the same like lot. We were on the Universal Studio lot. So never have I ever shot on a sound stage, like back in the lot, and we were in an office building. And like we would go to table reads, and like drive a golf cart back through all the sound stages and stuff like that. But usually we would be in the office primarily.
Love that show. Great show.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
It was a really fun one. I remember when we watched the audition tape for the hot guy, the hot guy love
Paxton.
Yeah, Paxton.
Yeah, whatever the actor's name is.
I remember when we watched the audition tape for that actor, and everybody in the room was like, "Oh, it's him!" Like we've all just, it's him, and it was so satisfying when it was.
Wait, that's so fun. So you got to watch like the actors' audition tapes?
Sometimes, yeah. Okay. We would watch some of their audition tapes, or their like chemistry tapes with other actors and things like that.
Do you make like notes and stuff on, or like?
Yeah. I mean, at that point, I was working as a coordinator, so my direct boss that I supported was more like the hands-on person who would deliver the feedback, but I would often work with her and kind of give her my ideas too. And she would, she really kind of mentored me and helped me figure out how to tell people what I thought and make it productive. Because, anybody can give their opinion, but is that always helpful? Is that always the most useful way to say what you're trying to say? Right. And, just being really thoughtful with how you communicate, especially critical feedback, with people is something that was like hugely valuable that I learned in that role from the people that I worked with.
So you were, okay, this is helpful because I feel like sometimes when, you see all the like titles at the end of like a show or something, and it's like what everyone does, I feel like it's helpful for our audience and just like anyone listening to understand like what someone in that role does. So you were a program coordinator, or?
Yeah, so I was a current programming coordinator for the studio.
Okay.
And then there's also like the person at the network. So in this case, Netflix, there was a person that was my counterpart at Netflix who I worked with a lot to kind of coordinate things and make sure everything was all aligned and things like that.
That's so fun. What a great experience.
Yeah. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I don't know if you've shared yet, like you're a writer, you're a screenwriter.
I am,
and producer and you director. What are your aspirations?
I would say more a writer and producer than a director. I wouldn't turn down the opportunity to direct, but it's a lot to take on. So I think my skill set is better suited to writing and producing. But I typically produce with my partner, my fiance. And we've thank you. It's new. We produced a short film a couple of years ago called The Society for Paranormal Healing, and it's like a buddy comedy where two best friends have a business where they heal ghosts essentially and help them move on to the next realm. But it's really about their friendship and how friendships evolve and change over time, and at its heart, it's like this really sweet story about two best friends, and it's also very, very silly, and there are ghosts. So, what are you gonna do? But that film screened in a few festivals, and we won Best Picture at the Austin Comedy Film Festival, which was very cool. Yeah. And our production company, Dinosaurs versus Robots, is we're working on a couple of projects right now that we have coming up, and that we have some scripts that are ready to go as soon as we find funding, and then we have some other projects that are kind of in development still and we're still working on. But it's really fun to work. Well, for me, it's really fun to work with my partner. I'm sure for some people it's not as fun, but we work really well together, and she's a very talented writer and director. I primarily write TV projects, and I've been working on one lately that's it's called Zack and the Zebras, and it's about a kids like entertainment band that goes around and like performs at school assemblies. And it's a mockumentary about kind of like the behind the scenes of that band.
That's cute.
Which it's been a fun time.
Yeah, I like the name, Zach and the
Thank
Zebras.
You. Yeah, thank you very much.
That sounds really uplifting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zach himself is quite morose, but
that's so fun. So did you study film in school when I think you said you went to Seattle University? Okay.
Yeah. So I originally was studying creative writing, and then I was sort of like, well, watching TV and movies is a lot more fun than reading books. Even though I love reading books, and I would never talk down on reading books. But when it's homework, movies are more fun. And so I switched my major and like never looked back. And I switched my major late enough that basically all of my classes for the last year and a half were just only film classes. And so I had a great time.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
That's so fun. So, but it sounds like you mostly write television though. So
yes, I do write. I have a few short films that I've written that I would love to make at some point. But as I'm sure you know, getting funding for projects is difficult. And they're more expensive than I want them to be to make. But I've been working on this one short film that's it's a rom-com. It's about a postcard collector and a rare book dealer that meet at an estate sale. And then sort of like have their little adventure.
That's so cute.
Yeah. Which I collect postcards, and so I was like, what would be cute? What would be cute about this? How can I turn this into something? And just was like, oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah. Postcards are cute.
Yeah. I was gonna say, do you collect them as in like you collect them at like thrift store kind of things, or like you like save the ones that people send to you?
Both. Okay. So I have like I actually recently started a blog about this. I have like I think around 600 postcards that are like have been written on and sent through the mail and as old as like 1903. And I just find them fascinating what people say about them. And so I have a website called Wish You Were Here, and there's like an associated Instagram page.
So cute.
Yeah, and so like I post a different postcard from the collection like a few times a week, and it's been really fun. And it's just like a fun, silly hobby.
I love that.
I love that too. Yeah, we'll put it all in the show notes, so everyone should check it out.
Please do. Yeah.
Isabel and I were talking, of course, about like transitioning into producing, and Alex and I have we've Zoomed before about this as well. But I was just wondering, like advice or like for writers who want to transition to producing, and like where do you get funding and like how do you do it?
How do you just actually do
it? How do you actually do it? A lot of it is just kind of like figuring it out as you go. So when I had produced a few things in school, but that had been like years and years ago. So when I started working on Society for Paranormal Healing, I sort of did a lot of Googling as sort of like, what do you need to do to film in public? Like, what do you need to do to have SAG actors? And like, how do you do all these? Just like very basic things. And surprisingly, there's a lot of information available online, whether it's like people's blogs or just Reddit, or, people want to give you their advice if you ask for it. Like, I emailed a producer from Laggies not that long ago and just said, hey, I'm trying to produce a feature. I've never done this before. Do you have any advice? I remember you were always like really nice to me. And she wrote me back, and she was like, I don't really have time to talk, but let me give you some general advice. And so like, just don't be afraid to reach out to people who've done it before and ask for their advice, because even if they don't have time, usually they'll still try to help you. But also like, don't be afraid to just like dig in and try, because that's kind of all producing is just like doing. And so, you know, you have a script. Okay, well, who are you going to send it to that can read it? Who might have an actor who wants to be in it? Or how are you going to find a crew? And, you know, you're going to do research and find people that seem like they might be aligned with the project. You're going to reach out to them and see if they want to talk to you. And then you're going to talk to them. And it takes a lot of, like, especially if you're making your own project and not hired for something, it takes a lot of internal motivation. Like, you have to kind of set deadlines for yourself and just force yourself to do it, because if you don't do it, nobody's going to do it. And then the thing doesn't get made.
Yeah. And as for funding, I mean, it depends on the project, but how I've talked to you about this before on the Zoom, but yeah, like how did you start with that, if you want to share? Or
so our first project was like wiping out the savings, which, you know, there are pros and cons to doing it that way. Like, you don't have to answer to anyone, but also you have to use all your own money, and that could very much go to something else like life and rent and food. And sometimes, like, a lot of people don't have that choice, don't have that opportunity to even, you know, do that or save for that. And like, it's a huge privilege that I was even able to do it that way. But if you are able to like invest in yourself in that way, you know, I think it was worth it for me. I don't know that everybody thinks it would be worth it for them. It kind of depends on your situation. But being able to have a product that serves as like, I can do it. I can make it happen. I can get it done. Even if you don't like the style, you at least know that I can achieve it.
Yeah.
And, you know, at least you have that one example of work. Getting funding from other places is very hard. You know, there's all the grants you can apply to, which, you know, you write all the essays and do the little video recordings and personal statements and all that stuff. And, you know, those are great opportunities, but they're also very limited opportunities. And, you know, another way to go is just, if you know people with money, like, do they want to invest? But if you're going to do that, usually they want to see some sort of investment plan of like how you're going to use their money, how you're going to try and earn it back, which for shorts especially is not really a thing. Like, making your money back on a short is not really, doesn't really happen unless you're already famous to begin with. And that's just kind of how it is, unfortunately. But, and I'm sure someone out there will tell me that I'm wrong and that you can make money on shorts, but we did not find that to be true. So, and then, let's see. Yeah. Using your own money, grants, finding rich people, especially like people with money who care about the arts. But I had a professor in college who taught a producing class, and he said going for dentists and doctors was usually really good because they don't know anything about entertainment, but they do typically have expendable income.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We'll go to all our doctors.
Maybe not during an appointment, but
as I'm at the dentist.
That'd be funny.
Pitching my screenplay.
Yeah.
That'd be funny during a cleaning.
I'm kind of okay. I want to ask like a silly question that I feel like maybe other people are thinking or think about that. Like, if you decide, okay, like, I've made my script, right? And I don't want to just sit around and wait for somebody else to make it. Like, what would you advise somebody as, like, what is the first step? Like, let's say I don't know anything about production. I'm not a director. Like, I'm literally just a writer who wrote a script, whether it's a short or like a feature. Like, should I, try and find a producer, try and find a director, like try and find like what do you think is like that really first step that somebody needs to do?
Okay, so if you wrote a script, you have a script, you feel like it's ready, but you don't want to direct it yourself, you don't want to produce it yourself. Okay.
Like I want to find like I'm just trying to put
okay.
Yeah, like who are the people I go to like get that made or like see if they want to read it and then they would like it. Like how am I reaching out to those
I would
people?
Start with trying to find a director because you want someone who understands what you envision for the film. Obviously, they're going to have their own vision and their own take and their own point of view, which you want in a director, but you want to make sure that those visions are aligned at least.
Yeah.
And you want someone who is as excited about your project as you are. And if you can find it, obviously you have to be your own cheerleader a little bit. But one of the things on Paranormal Healing that worked out really well is that everyone that was on that set was excited about the project. It wasn't just a job. It wasn't just a gig. Everybody was on board with what we were trying to do. And that I think that saved us more than anything else. Was just knowing that everybody there had our back.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I think start with a director and see if you can find someone who shares your vision. If you happen to have a friend who's a producer or someone that is a producer, like it doesn't hurt to have a producer first, and they might be able to help you develop the script or work on, giving you some feedback to make it more production ready. And I think especially for writers who have never produced their work before, they might be surprised what does and does not translate as well from page to screen.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that just takes time of like reading scripts and seeing what comes out on screen and like being able to compare like the difference. And for your first few projects, that's just not something that you probably have done a ton of times. Unless you like worked at a studio or worked at a production company or something like that.
Yeah.
As a writer, have you, I mean, I assume that you have tried to query, or do you always want to make like your own stuff that you write? Like,
I've definitely, I've queried. I don't currently have reps, so if anybody wants to rep me, hit me up. I query, like I apply to writing jobs, like I try to reach out to people as well. Ideally for me, at some point I would be working in a like TV writer's room. But I also really like to make my own stuff, and I really like producing, which some writers do, some writers don't. But like I really enjoy producing my partner's stuff and anything that she writes, and we work really closely together on the scripts, and I kind of like help her develop them. So for me, it's, I want to do a lot of different things. It's not just one or the other.
I hope that it seems like maybe it's like one of your goals with moving to Los Angeles to like get on a show, and like that would be kind of the like
ideally
ultimate.
Yeah, I think that would be like in the next couple of years. I think that would be like the target for me. It sort of depends on next steps. I found out last night that I'm a finalist for a fellowship
Awesome.
that I'm fingers crossed hoping works out. I think that would definitely be a big boost. But definitely kind of working in that direction.
And we actually don't really talk about TV that often. So how does a writer, get into a TV room? Like, how does that even happen? Do you have to be a writer's assistant? Yeah.
So there are many paths to the writer's room. Some people do go the writer's assistant route. Some people do script coordinator or showrunner's assistant, something like that. Some people are stand-ups and get jobs on late night shows. Some people, or if people just like really like late night and write late night packets and submit them. And for like scripted shows, usually like agents and managers will submit their clients to the showrunner and to the studio and to the network, whoever the powers that be are on the show. And then they have like a huge stack of scripts of like everything in the same genre and the same tone and the same whatever. And they read through like 15, 20 scripts, and then they say like, oh, this person's worth talking to, this person's worth talking to, get rid of the rest. And then they have meetings with those two people, and then they sort of like decide which one's a better fit for the writer's room. So like that's also a possible path. And you know, like there's like people come from a lot of different backgrounds. So not everybody kind of came up through the traditional entertainment system. Like some people were like novelists or authors. Some people were like former cops who wanted to become writers after they retired, and they work on like SVU and things like that. So there are many different paths. I'm just hoping I can like find one.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah, what would your like dream show be if you, I mean, or maybe a new
right now I would say Hacks.
Oh, okay. I need to watch that. I have not.
You absolutely need to watch that.
Yeah.
It's on the list. Fantastic. It is very funny and very smart. And I would love to be on that show.
Manifesting for you, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we could do some manifesting. Yeah, we love to do that here on the podcast.
I think I already packed my crystals away, so I need all the help I can get.
Okay.
So then what was the last, like, I guess, project that you or like you and your partner made like yourselves, and like you maybe want to tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so let's see, what did we make? We haven't made a kind of like larger scale project since we made Society for Paranormal Healing, just because of funding. Like we very much agreed before we started, we were only going to dip into our savings the one time for the one project as a proof of abilities.
Yeah.
And so we've made a couple smaller projects. We have this experimental film called Brain Medicine that's sort of like collage art film. So it's kind of like animated collage art is maybe the best way to describe it. But it's like a kind of like a spoken word poem with kind of this visual component that's really cool. And then we were working on fundraising and had like sort of a budget and production plan ready for a project called The Alamo, the Musical, the Film, which is a comedy set in a high school in North Texas, where the theater director writes a musical about the Alamo, in which Davy Crockett is gay. And it enrages the conservative town and the conservative media. And then there's this like kind of cultural battle for like the soul of the school. And it's very sweet. It's like, you know, like a ragtag bunch of like scrappy teens who do theater and, you know, trying to put the show together.
That sounds awesome.
But yeah, it was, we were working with like, we were trying to raise a budget of $500,000. And we wanted to shoot in Texas. We went to Texas. We toured a couple of high schools. We, you know, did the whole thing. But we unfortunately were not able to hit our fundraising goals in time. And since there is a musical component, we also, you know, we would have needed to hire a composer before we had like hired the other people, before we hired the other people, before we shot. So it was kind of like a domino effect of, you know, once we didn't hit that one deadline, we decided to postpone the project until we can have better funding.
Yeah.
But this year we're going to try and make sort of like a run and gun short, with as little budget as possible, and just, you know, call in favors and do everything ourselves and do our best, just because we want to make more stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's awesome.
That sounds great. Did you always, if I can ask, when you met your partner, did you know, well, fiance, I should say fiance.
Yes.
Like, did you meet through film? Like, did you always know you were going to make stuff together, or it happened later?
No. So we met on Hinge in June of 2020.
Wow.
So a very chill time. And so like we very quickly like became each other's like bubble. Yeah. And it was sort of like, I haven't really seen anyone lately. Have you seen anyone lately? No. We could hang out then, right? And then we did. We definitely broke the rules, but it was okay in that case. But yeah, so it wasn't really until like a year in that we started working together. I don't know why it didn't occur to us to do anything together at first. And like we both had very busy jobs. Like I was working probably close to 60 hours a week and in grad school. Lori was working a lot. And so we kind of just like didn't really have the time at first. And then we like, once we sort of had more time and we were both kind of working on our own thing, it just sort of made sense to work together. And we exchanged scripts, we gave each other feedback, and then it was like, wait a second, this is like a really good back and forth. Maybe we should do some of this together. And then the first thing we ever wrote together was a screwball romantic comedy called Max and Imogen, and it is sort of loosely inspired by Bringing Up Baby and What's Up Doc. And it's two women who fall in love sort of over the course of this like really silly, ridiculous day. And we wanted to make that. We submitted it for a few grants, but unfortunately did not receive said grants.
Oh.
Well, it sounds really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like the idea of it being like people falling in love over a day.
Yeah.
Cool. Reminds me of like Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist.
Yeah. I love that movie. Yeah. I remember I got the DVD and it came with like a special pack of pins so you could put them on your backpack.
Cool.
That's amazing.
What? Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to hear about like your just kind of like thoughts on queer movies or like queer rom-coms. I feel like we're seeing kind of more of those come about, and I'm kind of curious, you know, if, are most of the films you write like queer stories, or do you kind of just go wherever?
Say if it suits the characters, then yes, which typically happens. I don't like set out specifically to write queer stories or queer characters. It's sort of just like, if I think of a character who feels like they're queer to me, then I'll write them as queer. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like, for example, I wrote a short story recently, and I don't know that it's mentioned anywhere in the actual short story, but in my notes for it, I have notes that she was queer and had like an ex-girlfriend, but I don't think it ever actually like appeared. So it's one of those things where I know it, but it's not necessarily like prescribed to an audience reading it. If they read it and don't see that, then that's fine with me. But in some cases, I want it to be very explicit that, you know, this is a queer person, they're in a queer relationship. And particularly in rom-coms, there's just not enough representation across the board, I think, for queer people. Like, it's starting to get better, but I think there just hasn't been enough opportunity. And to be honest, right now, it's a little bit scary, the tone of the country towards queer people. And if I can make a movie that makes someone realize, oh, they're just people, then I want to do that. And, you know, I think I think there's a lot of homophobia that comes out of fear and fear of the unknown, because people don't think they know any queer people, and they don't think they've met any queer people, when usually they have, even if they don't know about it. And, you know, I think media, and I think film especially, is a really great way to reach people.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, you know, queer kids that might live somewhere where that's more what their environment is like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you seen any, well, this is kind of a rapid fire question, but have you seen any great queer rom-coms or films in general that our audience should watch?
I really liked Fire Island.
I have not
that
seen
was really fun, and was like made and starred almost entirely like queer cast and crew. Like, it was, you know, like by us for us, which is always better, I think. You know, we don't need to like do a green book or something for the gays, like a rainbow book or whatever.
I'm really excited to see A Nice Indian Boy, which is going to be playing here in LA.
Oh, I want to see that one.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about that. And I think it was you, Aviva and my sister told me to watch Am I Okay? And I thought that I just really liked the way that that was directed by Tig Notaro and Stephanie, her wife. I think they wrote it together, but I feel like that one really felt true to my experience. And so I really enjoyed just like something that felt really like, this is just like what it's like for some people. And I think I like those kind of movies too, where somebody who maybe comes from a different type of environment can just like feel seen in a movie.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's how I feel too about writing queer stories, is just like something that feels really authentic and true, that like both can speak to the person who maybe is experiencing that, like especially in somewhere like I grew up in Ohio, like middle of nowhere, where like I didn't know anybody who was gay. But then also to people who like, I think I agree with what you're saying, where it's just like some people just don't know, like they don't think that they know anybody, but they're also just like created all this fear in their mind about queer people because of the media. And I think a lot of people watch movies and TV shows as like comfort things. And I think like if there's a way for people to like be introduced to like, this is just a normal person and this is their life, and like I'd love to see more of that too.
You know, whatever your feelings about Ellen, her coming out on her show in the 90s was huge.
Yeah.
And her being just this character on TV that everybody knew, and then after they all knew and loved her, coming out was like that was a big shift moment, I think, culturally. Right. And, you know, after that, we had shows like Will and Grace, and that never would have happened had Ellen not come out of the closet literally on television.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now preparing for rapid fire questions.
What is your favorite rom-com and why?
My favorite rom-com is What's Up, Doc, directed by Peter Bogdanovich in 1972, starring Barbara Streisand and Ryan O'Neal. And to tell you why I have chosen two quotes that I think best exemplify the movie.
Okay.
So at this one, you don't really need context. Judy, I know I'm different, but from now on, I'm going to try and be the same. Howard, the same as what? Judy, the same as people who aren't different. And then at the end of the movie, Howard, played by Ryan O'Neal, was in Love Story, where love means never having to say you're sorry. So Judy says, love means never having to say you're sorry. And Howard says, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard. And it's just a delightful movie. And it's like these two little weird, quirky birds who find each other. And it's Madeline Kahn's first role. Great script. Buck Henry wrote it. Just a fantastic time.
I've never seen that.
I know, yeah. I want to see that. Okay, what is your favorite rom-com trope to write?
Enemies to lovers or fake relationship.
Oh, love fake relationship.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite rom-com outfit?
I do. Billy Crystal in When Harry Met Sally with the sweater. I also love Meg Ryan's outfit in that scene, but Billy Crystal I think gets the win.
Yeah, that big sweater. Do you have a favorite rom-com line or moment?
I have so many. I have two and an honorable mention. Okay. So this first one is from Harold and Maude, from 1971, directed by Hal Ashby. And Maude says, "A lot of people enjoy being dead, but they are not dead, really. They're just backing away from life. Reach out, take a chance, get hurt even, but play as well as you can. Go team, go. Give me an L, give me an I, give me a V, give me an E, an LIVE, live. Otherwise, you got nothing to talk about in the locker room." And that is just like such a life-affirming scene, and I love it so much. This next one is also from When Harry Met Sally. I came here tonight because when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. That, I mean, just a classic.
Yeah.
Can't put it down. This one is an honorable mention because Casablanca is more a romantic drama than a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
But Rick does say, of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine, and I love it.
Yeah. That's great.
I love the reading of all these.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to read some more scenes. Yeah.
So yeah, have you seen any rom-coms that you'd recommend lately?
Yes. I have a list, so I'm just going to read through it really fast.
Love it.
These are starting in 1934, so get ready.
Okay.
It Happened One Night, Bringing Up Baby, Holiday, His Girl Friday, Harold and Maude, What's Up Doc, Princess Bride, 10 Things I Hate About You, Stuck in Love, Moonrise Kingdom, Set It Up, Palm Springs, and any version of Pride and Prejudice that accurately captures how funny that movie is.
Awesome.
Because I feel like there are versions that do not capture the comedy of Pride and Prejudice, and that is a sin.
I was very happy to hear that Set It Up was on your list.
Yeah, we like
one of my favorite recent ones.
That's a great one.
Okay, if money didn't matter, what's a rom-com that you would make?
I would make a feature version of the screwball that I mentioned earlier, Max and Imogen. We have a short script that's about 25 pages, but I think we would put together a feature of that.
Awesome.
That one sounds really good.
Yeah.
So to wrap it up, what are you working on now? You've talked about that somewhat.
Yes.
And how can we follow your work online and your career?
Well, I think I've already talked about the specific projects I'm working on, but I did just start a class on Sunday, a writing class about loneliness, which is has been fascinating so far. It's sort of like the philosophy of loneliness, essentially, and like writing about that and how it appears in literature. And that's been really cool. And where can you find me on the internet? I'm on Instagram at Alex Cottle. I'm also on Bluesky. If you're using Bluesky, I can be found on LinkedIn very easily. And then you can find Introvert Survival Guide, the podcast I created, on Audible. It's an Audible original. There is a show that I'm very excited about that I would love to tell you guys about that I worked on when I worked at Fresh Produce, called Hit Singles. It is a delightful scripted rom-com podcast that is going to be on Audible starting April 10th. And it's really fun. It's really, really like kind of flashy. It's about a DJ who moves to Brooklyn for the summer to kind of like live with her friends and kind of try to make it as a DJ in New York. But then she meets a boy. And who knows what's going to happen next.
Sounds exciting.
It's great. It was really fun to work on, and it's called Hit Singles, and it's out on April 10th. And then the only other place to find me is on the postcard blog, but I will send you guys a link for that one.
I want to read the postcard blog.
Everything, in the show notes. Yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for making time to chat with us, and good luck with your move. I'm sure that's a lot going on right now, but appreciate you taking time to chat with us.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It was delightful to talk to you both.
This has been an episode of When Isabel Met Aviva. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to stay up to date with our episodes, please subscribe. Bonus points if you leave us a positive review. You can follow us on Instagram at whenisabelmetaviva and on Bluesky at whenisabelmetaviva.
You can also find our personal profiles on Instagram and Bluesky too. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions or need any advice about your screenwriting career, or if you just want to obsess over rom-coms with us.
And don't forget to watch and write as many rom-coms as possible.